I've had a few requests to do a Substance Painter tutorial. Now, there's a lot of great tutorials already out there. They're very easy to follow along, and you can generate really great results on your models. So I'm going to do this a little bit different than what's typically out there. I'm going to talk about kind of what makes Substance work the way it works and how it compares to just doing textures the old way, perhaps. So if we were to go to a photo editor, in this case, Affinity Photo, I can go ahead and load up any kind of image I want and turn it into like a seamless texture. But this is how you could generate PBR materials as well, by working with the tools inside of a photo editor. Generally, it might go something like this. You take a diffuse photo somewhere, you could copy it out, perhaps start a new document, maybe make it like a 1024 by 1024, something along these lines, powers of 2, right? And you paste that in here, size it appropriately so that it would appear correct inside of, or on your models anyways. And once you got it sized up just how you want it and positioned where you need it, all right, you could go ahead and start making them seamless basically, right? So we'll go with this corner here. All right, so let's do that real quick. We'll rasterize and trim the layer, filters, distort, affine. And now we can offset it by 50/50. And normally you would use the clone stamp tool at this point to get rid of the tiling effect there, right? So we'll use a healing brush tool because it's just faster, but clone stamp's usually the way to go. In my case, I'm just going to go for it with this one. And so this is how you would convert it into a seamless texture. Generally speaking, something like this. All right. And so you just knock it out. And next time you do the affine, there might be a little cross in the middle. You can get rid of it. Okay. So that's the basic idea of prepping a diffuse texture. Now, in order to turn it into a PBR texture, you'd run it through a lot of different filters and do some different layers and blends and things like that. We're not going to do all that here in this video, but I do want to point out that a lot of this stuff you see over here, like high pass filters, for example, all right, this might separate it so that you get only the high frequency details, and then you can mix and match this kind of stuff to create normal maps, displacement maps, all the other fun stuff that you might need, height maps, curvature maps, et cetera, et cetera. So using things like the high pass filter, perhaps, or maybe you want to isolate certain little sections of this, right? Like maybe you want to have some curves and you want to work on certain channels, right? Remember, images are made up of red, green, and blue channels. So we can isolate maybe like a green channel and start dragging the curves around. And if we had this desaturated to black and white, and you would see, we could do that, adjust my curves. Go back to the green channel real quick. Yeah, so we can fluctuate things with curves. There's a lot of different little tools you can edit photographs with, right? And you can see I can isolate certain little areas and blow things out. Maybe if I need to create a mask or something like that, I could do this, right? That's just the main idea here. So you can use things like curves. You can use like a Gaussian blur if you want to blur things, et cetera, et cetera. All right, and there's, go over a couple more real quick. There's like posterize, a lot of these different photo editing tricks, right? You can posterize things, perhaps. Get rid of that one real quick. There's also the levels, so you can change the brightnesses around, right? You'll notice there's one down here called procedural textures, right? And so we can also generate different types of procedural textures. Procedural textures, of course, are just mathematically created textures. That's all that really is. Okay, so there's all kinds of fun stuff in here, and using these different types of filters as well, right? So we'll get rid of all that. All right, so let's say we had another image. Let me go ahead and open up one I have on the desktop. And just go ahead and paste this on top here. You can add masks to these, right? Create what's called a mask layer here in Affinity. If this is set to pure white, it will show up. If we were to start using black, it will start to make it start disappearing if I use a correct brush here. right? So you can see that's going on like that. So masks, generally speaking, are black and white images. If I click on this, we'll see that we can just look at it, just work on the mask if we want. All right. And ultimately, that's what would give us this result here where they start to blend together anyways, right? Like so, right? Cool. So now that we understand that, let's talk about Substance Designer and get it to load up correctly, right? I'm going to do a new package, new substance graph. I'm not going to name, actually we'll name it right now. We'll just call it concrete. Okay. I'm going to drop in a base material node. So hit spacebar, drop base material, and I can start exposing these parameters here. Now, from a file, I'm going to use one of these I've already done. I'm going to link it, drop it in here. This is just a 1024 by 1024 texture. And I'm going to run it through a node called bitmap to material light. So it turns it into a PBR material. And we'll diffuse to base color, normal to normal. We'll just hook all this up here real quick. So roughness, metallic, and height, and ambient occlusion. I can right click, drag, drop that down there. You can see it's going to generate a PBR material. This node's pretty awesome because what it does is it allows you to adjust things such as like the fine detail amounts. And you can work off a photograph really fast like this to create kind of a PBR material, okay? But we can see what's going on here now. It's actually generating a material. It's set up here. We can tweak it all day long. The main idea of Substance Designer is that you generate all kinds of different things here. You can create materials, you can create textures, procedural textures, masks, all kinds of other fun stuff. So it comes with kind of a little library here of stuff already that you can utilize, of course. But the idea is that you have procedural textures. And then when you use adjustments of different types, we're going to see the same stuff we see in the photo editor for the most part, where we're adjusting like color and contrast and all that other fun stuff. So you'll find that there is, in fact, a high pass filter, for example. So there's high pass color and grayscale. There's a high pass. There's levels. All kinds of other fun stuff like that, right? And of course, just virtually everything else that you can think of, basically. So like, there's like blur, HQ grayscale, color, blur, directional blurs as well. All kinds of fun stuff. Okay. Now let's head over to Krita for 1 second. We're talking about gradient maps. This is also something that exists inside of Blender, which I don't have Blender open right now, but if we were to just start doing a black and white image, just trying to create some kind of shading here real quick. You have like bright sections, light sections, dark sections, right? Let's try this instead. It'll be a little bit faster. All right. All right. So we can see what's going on now. Grayscale image. There's a setup here. In Krita, it's called filter masks, but it's basically all your non-destructive stuff. You can see you can even generate normal maps. But the main thing is that we're looking for a, let's see where it's at. It should be in here under mapping. Yeah. We can create a gradient map. Okay. So gradients, you can change to behave in kind of different ways. In this case, I'm going to make this one black. We'll change this one to 100% opacity real quick. We'll change it to white. You'll see it's shading correctly, but we can replace the light values with red, and we can replace the dark values with something like maybe like a darker blue or something, right? So this is actually a way you can color concept art. If you do your shading in gray, you can use gradients along in this process. Of course, you can also do that inside of Blender using the color ramp node in your materials. And in Designer, you also have, once again, like if I take a noise pattern and I run it into a gradient ramp or gradient map here in Gradient Editor, same process, right? So nothing too crazy here, nothing hard to think about anyways. We can just change the colors around and we'll end up with blue to green to yellow, basically. So you can see we can also create gradient colors here as well, right? So just pointing that out real quick, because you'll see that again here in a second, right? All of these different things. Now, we've created a base material. We can right click, create output nodes. And I'm not going to do the hidden ones, but usually you can. And so what these are here, these are going to be your outputs. They're already set up, so they have the proper naming on it and everything else. And you can see we got normal, we got base color, normal, roughness, metallic, height, and ambient occlusion. Now, normally, what you would end up doing, you'll save your package out somewhere, say it's concrete, okay? And then you can export the bitmaps, export outputs as bitmaps, right? And you can do PNGs or whatever else the case here. But the cool thing about Substance Setup is that we can actually take this SBS file and we can publish it as an SBS AR. We can generate missing icons, create a material icon, send it out to where we need it. We'll go to the desktop with this one and publish. So now back to the painter. We're going to open up sample. I'm going to do meat mat real quick. Okay. And so meat mat comes in. This should be pre-baked. So we have different types of textures in here that should already be set up. And if we're looking for our mesh maps or bake maps, we can press B, right? And so when you're doing a high to low poly bake, this is usually what's generated. When you hit B, you'll see all your baked maps, okay? Like world position maps and all kinds of other fun stuff, right? ID maps as well. Ambient occlusion and curvature. And these help drive procedural textures or procedural masks so that way they work inside a substance. Like when you have like edge wear and stuff like that. Or like dust and cavities. So your bake maps are extremely important. And even if you're not doing a high to low bake, you can still bake any model and generate this kind of data, right? And you should do that to make things work correctly. All right. Now, if we hit C, this is going to be the maps that are actually on the model itself. So C is just, when you toggle through it, there's nothing on it right now. So it's not doing anything. And then M will take us back to material. So just like your photo editor, you have layers and you have different materials here or texture sets. So we can see that we have the head, body, and the base are all going to have their own little textures for them, right? But if we were to click on each one of these, that would change, obviously. We'll just focus on the head for now. And as you can see, it has one layer and it's just set up by default like this, right? Nothing going on yet. So this is where things start to get interesting, because not only do we have the layer as you would be used to it in a photo editor, but now we have channels for basically the base color, metallic, roughness, normal, and height. So let's get rid of this paint layer here, which is that one. And let's instead do a fill layer, okay? That's just going to color the whole thing here, basically. All right. And so for this one, let's just change this base color real quick to red, okay? Now, we're going to go ahead and create another one, actually. We'll put it below it. Just a regular fill layer. We don't have to do nothing special there. So this fill layer that's red, if we add a black mask to it, it's going to make it transparent. So it's the same as masking inside of a photo editor. And you can see here, if I just start clicking, it's going to start generating it. You can alt click on this as well. And that's your mask, right? So now we can just go in here, use the paint tools, and just go to town, basically, right? I don't know why it's asking to create a paint layer, but there it goes, I guess. Okay, because it's not a paint layer. That's why. I was working on the mask. That makes sense, right? All right, so anyways, you can hit X. You can go back and forth between black and white, so you can work on the mask if you need to. You have all your kind of similar tools here for your brushes. You got like your hardness, and you got your spacing, angle jitter, flow jitter, size jitter. All your brush customization is right there, basically. You can use different things that are included with Substance, such as like you can use alphas, right? And if you were to just select one of these, you can see we'll have an alpha on the brush. And so now we can set up our mask like that if we wanted to. We can just do a lot of kind of typical 2D photo editing type workflows, basically, more or less, with these tools. And that's great. Okay. The trick with this, though, is it gets a little bit more complicated, perhaps. On a fill layer, this is very simple, perhaps, but we can go back to our base material. Like if we want to change the roughness, we can change that roughness. Not a big deal, right? But we can definitely paint only like one channel at a time, perhaps, on like regular paint layers here. You see, you just paint, select the alpha. Okay. Maybe we don't even use color or metal or anything. Maybe we just do roughness. And so we want it to be very glossy or very rough, something like that, right? So we can hit Control, right click, drag. We'll make this little area rougher. Maybe we want it to be not as rough over here. So we can paint things manually with little paint layers like this. And I created it automatically. If you're curious, you can just click paint layer, right? Okay, a lot of times it's easier to control things with the fills. It's kind of like doing a paint bucket, I guess. But you can change things like height on these as well, right? So you're controlling all those different things that you have available to you right here, more or less. And you can do this with procedural textures too. So when we look at this little section here, all of these are procedural textures. And if, let's say, we want to change the way the height behaves, we could use something like a gradient. We drop it in here. Let's get rid of this. We'll add a white mask. Okay. So now we have for this material here, you can see we can play around with balance here and do all kinds of fun stuff like that, contrast, whatever the case, and tile it more, perhaps. Okay. So we can drop in any procedural down on this and utilize it. So if we want something rougher, a pattern, whatever the case, we can do that. And you see how it's really strong? Sometimes it's too strong. There's two ideas on how you can work with this, okay? There's the idea that you can go to the height channel, because that's what we're working on. And we can drop the opacity on it, just like you would on a layer in a photo editor. You can also set its blending mode. So if you wanted to pass through, replace something, multiply, or combine normal maps, you can do all this fun stuff in here. But you see, we could drop the opacity if we wanted. There's also another option. And so that's where you can go up here and you can add things like filters or levels. So you can adjust the brightness with the levels, but we could definitely add in, you can also add in paint layers if you wanted, but we can add in a filter. Okay. And for this filter, maybe we want to just blur it. So we can actually add a blur to it. And sometimes you got to make sure you click on the right ones here. Maybe you don't want to do it to all of them. You might want to just do it to height, right? So we can actually blur it if we wanted to. Or we could do any number of other different things, directional blurs, for example, as well. There's all kinds of stuff in there to play with. I'll leave that up to you for the most part, but yeah, there's like gradients and a lot of different types of stuff in here. Warps and sharpens, triplanar mapping, height adjustments, things like that. Height adjustment's actually pretty good, by the way. Might want to play with that one a little bit. You get that knocked back quite a bit with that one. Okay. Now you don't have to do it with the height adjustment. You could add the levels. Okay. And you can make the darks lighter, perhaps, but you see it's doing it to the base color. Change it to height. Make the darks lighter. Make the brights lighter, or darker, excuse me. And so we can also adjust it with this as well. So these are just different ideas on how you can start to manipulate fill layer, basically, more or less, is what's going on here. All right, things are going to get a little bit more complicated, perhaps, as you start to get more into the software. But really, you're going to learn those kinds of things as you go through tutorials, perhaps, or you watch other people working inside of Substance as they're doing their model painting it as well. So, and then baking high to low is just the other task that you're going to, it's part modeling, part UV mapping, part just bringing it into Substance and hitting bake. But yeah, it all adds up, right? But Substance can be very confusing if you've never done any photo editing because of this reason. This is very simple kind of stuff. It's really not hard to use at all. But if you don't kind of understand these things, I think it makes it a lot more challenging to kind of see what's going on here. And there's a lot of different little areas to access little certain features as well. So For example, like maybe we wanted to work with a ambient occlusion set here, but we don't have AO, right? So we'd have to turn on and enable AO, and that would probably be right here. You can see the little plus sign, texture set settings. So you can turn on an ambient occlusion channel as well if you need it. You can also turn on things like opacity. All right. And so now we can actually do transparency on this if we wanted it as well. So let's do like a paint layer. Let's set only the opacity here. We'll set it to black. We'll see what happens. If it'll actually let me paint. Okay, I don't think I have the right shader set up right now, maybe. Got ASM metal rough. Should be one of these. Okay, so there's metal rough with alpha. There's a PBR metal rough with alpha blending. So we're going to turn that on. Okay, now you see it taking effect. Okay, so you have to change the shader on this one in order to get some of these effects going. But now you can see, we can see through the model. So if you're ever trying to do just certain things, you know, you'll want to that are semi-transparent or transparent, you'll want to turn that on like so. All right, and you can see we're just painting right now, so we'd actually have to use the eraser in order to get this to go away. This is where those fill layers become super useful, because you could do like all that off. Say you just do the opacity, you make it all transparent maybe, and you add a black mask maybe, right? And so now we can just go through, work only on that mask, and start to work it out basically. You see? So something like that perhaps. Now we'll delete that for now. So once we get through this like initial start here, we'll find we can create other layers. In this case, I'm just going to make this like a dark brown. That's more rough. Okay. Maybe it's like dirt or something like that. We can imagine it being dirt. All right. We can use smart mask in this case. And a smart mask is going to work off of those pre-baked maps or textures. So we can do whatever we want here with this. So like if we want to do occlusions, like dust occlusion, right? We can drag that over here and add it to it. It's only going to show up in the cavities of the crevices now. It's very light right now, but we can change the dirt level here and change things like that, or dirt contrast. And so you can see how that works out, right? You can do things like invert it. It's quite useful to know that one. Change the scales of it, all that other fun stuff. Remember when we were using this, our initial height here that we had set up, that grunge, there's a balance to this too. Like we can play around with balance on it, contrast, tiling amount. Okay. Your whole material itself, you can also adjust the tiling if needed. So there's all kinds of fun things there to play with. There's like right now it's going to use UVs. We can do triplanar projections so that it blends between all those different surface angles. So we can do that. So you can think of this as like just UV mapping more or less, so kind of the way to think about it. And so we can start setting this up. Now, when we're done and we're happy with this, what we can eventually do is just group it together by hitting Control G. Delete that one for now. When we group it together, we can give this a name of whatever we want. We can call this a smart material. Okay. And right click it and you create smart material. Watch what happens. It generates it right here. Okay. So whenever we want to use this again later on a different model or whatever the case, we'll have it accessible. We can just go ahead and drag and drop it where we need it basically. Right. So that's good to know that, right? Now it gets a little bit better here. We'll go back to the head and we'll delete everything we got. Remember we made that material before in Substance Designer there. So we can actually add an asset here or import resource, add resource. And we will go to the desktop where I had that concrete. We're going to import. Okay. I don't know why I didn't, SBSAR file, not the SBS. That's why. Okay. Concrete SBSAR. We'll bring this in as a base material, but notice you can bring in filters, generators, procedurals, textures, and alphas. So you can set up other things that you need to bring in inside a Substance Designer, not just base materials. But we're doing base material in this case. And so when we import this, it'll come in as a new material, just like how we had set it up over there in Substance Designer. See? And so we can easily drag this over and just drop it. And there we go. Now you'll notice that we don't have any options here for this one. Okay. We haven't set anything up for it to be optional on what it can do. So it's a little bit limited in what it's going to be able to do right now, but we can tile it more. If we tile it less, it's not procedural, so it gets a lot blurrier basically. But we can bump up the tiling if needed. It's based off of an image, so it was like super fast to make too, which is fun. All right, but in Substance Designer, back over here we go. Let's say we wanted to blend this diffuse texture and tint it with a color. Right, so we create a color here. We drag this out to a blend, toss it into here, like so. And we can blend with, like, say, a multiply. Okay. And we'll make this pure white for now. All right. And so the way this works out, just like you would in like Unreal Engine or Blender or wherever, if you set up nodes in a similar fashion, you got like a mixed color node and a color input, and then you got like a multiply. You can tint this now to whatever color you want. And you can change the, maybe the opacity to how much it's going to blend or something like that, right? So very easy process there to understand. But here inside of Substance, what's a little bit better than this is we can right click on these and, or actually we don't even have to right click on it. We just go over to here and we can expose as a new graph input. Okay. And when we do that, we can give it a label, some kind of name that we'll see inside of Substance later on. We can say like, this is the tint, right? And then set it to white. That's going to be its default values, generally speaking. And so we click OK. So if we were to save this out and republish this SBSAR, okay, we'll go back to Painter. It probably won't update here as is. You probably have to just go back to add resource, and then pick the SBSAR, base material. It should auto update, but it doesn't always do that. And we'll probably have to drag it back out as well. Okay, you see now we have a tint available. So we can tint now here inside of Substance, Painter at least. So you can see we can adjust the alpha amount there as well. So you can create really complicated materials and whatnot in order to start texturing here with a base material anyways. So you can see our base materials that already come with Substance. A lot of these are already set up like that. They got like rust color variation, all kinds of other fun stuff going on that one. But yeah, you can just kind of play around with these and look at them now, and you'll understand what's going on here. All right. So it's a complete material system between the two softwares basically, right? And so that's great. But we created a smart material before, that little red material. Well, we have some preset. Clear the search real quick. We have some preset smart materials that come with Substance as well. And this is the same thing basically that's going on here. You can see there's a transparent glass visor. So have an alpha on for in this case would be nice, or opacity. But this is broken down into a couple base materials here and some glowing edges, right? That's fun. Get rid of that one. It's like jade. And jade should have subsurface scattering settings on these. I don't know if these ones actually do, but so jade's usually kind of absorbs light a little bit, but yeah, so maybe we can add a scattering on it, maybe scattering color. I'm curious if it just shows up. Anyways, you can add all kinds of different stuff that you need here for whatever your project needs anyways. I feel like they just disappeared. No, scattering color. It looks like it's on. Looks like it's kind of working. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe I'm imagining that. You can also try cranking up your specular quality, which can be quite good sometimes. Texture quality somewhere as well too, if I can find it. You got like post-processing effects. So you can think of this like as EV settings, if you would. Just crank a couple of these on real quick. Maybe not distort right now. But yeah, you can get like glare and all kinds of other fun stuff going. So let's go back to that shader. That's with alpha blending. Can't ever remember which one it is that has subsurface scattering on it. Takes a little while for those icons to start popping up. It might be included in the default one now as well. Pretty sure you used to have to change it. I'll deal with a whole lot of that, but anyways, yeah, it's probably on it right now. I can't even tell. So that's just another one to look at, I guess. And, you know, it's a group. That's all it is. It's a group of just presets here with smart mask on them and all kinds of other fun stuff as well. All right. That's all that is. It's nothing special about the software for the most part. You also have the ability to change like the background lighting. We can't see the background lighting right now, but it is there. And if we take a look, make sure I got the right one, environment opacity, we can turn it on. You can see our background. Right now it's really blurry, of course. You can see what that post-processing effect's doing with the lens flares. But like if we do like over clouds, for example, we can drag and drop that in here. So now we have over clouds. Any of these other ones you want to play around with, you could, of course, do that. So the last thing we're going to touch on before we end the video, of course, is adding a paint layer. And when you isolate only the normal here, you turn everything else off. Normally it looks something like this. You can go in the texture section here. You can grab any kind of normal map like this, and you can utilize these inside of normal here like that. And so you can actually just click onto your model and add just different kind of details to the surface here if you wanted to. You can double tap to double the strength if you wanted to. Doing something like that as well. So you can make some really cool stuff very fast inside of Substance once you understand these basic kind of ideas on how to create textures and whatnot. Now, of course, the only other thing that is really involved here, I would say, is how you create your smart material, if you would, because you can start with like base metals that work into like a primer paint that have like a gloss paint on top of it, and then maybe have some like dirt specks or damage on top of that, perhaps. And then use procedural mask, perhaps, that blend certain ones out different ways or whatever, and control things with layers. So you can do a lot of stuff with creating a smart material, basically, before you even get to the point where you actually need to actually hand brush any kind of paint effects into your models at all. So very cool way of working. A lot to learn, perhaps, if you're completely new to it. But if you have any kind of photo editing background, this is a lot easier to deal with. And so if you didn't have that, hopefully this helps you out. And I'll check you out in the next video. All right, take care.